If you have a WordPress product, there's no reason to think beyond plugins, right? Not so fast. In today's world where website owners increasingly demand more from their sites and want to stretch the boundaries of what can be done within WordPress, you should think outside of the plugin and theme box too. Would your product benefit from a companion web or mobile app? Should your plugin not be a plugin at all, but be an app instead? Find out in this episode of WP Product Talk.
This is WP Product Talk, a place where every week we bring you insights in product marketing, business management and growth, customer experience, product development, and more. It's your go-to podcast for WordPress product owners by WordPress product owners. And now, enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Amber from Equalize Digital.
And I'm Matt from Stellar WP.
And today we are talking about apps, both web and mobile, and how to know if your WordPress product needs a companion app, or as I said before, maybe it shouldn't be a plugin and should be an app instead.
And that's why today we've invited Colin Daniels, co-founder and CEO of Grenade, here to talk with us today. Colin, welcome.
Hi, Amber and Matt. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Do you have a minute to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do?
Yeah, sure. My name is Colin, as you know, and yeah, I've been in the WordPress space for a long time. I started my first blog in around 2004. That's when I first started using WordPress, so early days, and kind of always remained in the ecosystem in one way or another. Moved more into the business side of media and publishing, and managed to get WordPress into those kind of industries where I worked. So I've always really had a love for WordPress, and as it evolved, we started a digital agency, myself and my partner Robin, and we initially tried to do our own content management system, and which is ironic for publishers. But most of our clients were requesting WordPress sites, so we never really got out of WordPress. And over the years, we did a lot of custom WordPress development, plugins, apps for customers, and we tried a lot of things. And over time, we managed to productize our business and drop the agency side, which I think is a common theme in the WordPress space. And here we are today. We've got two main products. One of them is FooEvents, which is a events and tickets managing plugin suite for WooCommerce specifically, and FooSales, which is a point of sale system for WooCommerce as well.
And that's I think we were talking a little bit before we started, that's a SaaS, the point of sale system.
Yes, that's correct. So two very different business models. FooEvents is, as I said, like a plugin suite with add-ons, the traditional annual pricing, you pay for updates and support, GPL, and FooSales is more SaaS, monthly annual pricing, and you paying for the platforms.
Great. Yeah, we've had other conversations with guests debating the merits of creating SaaS, but I'm excited about this conversation because we haven't previously discussed what it means for a WordPress product owner to have a companion app. So, we always like to start by talking about why is this important, or why should product owners be thinking about this? I've thought a little bit about this, and I think one of the things we talk about a lot nowadays is how can we be as accessible, not accessibility accessible, but accessible, like easy to use and always with someone, maybe in their pocket, on the go, on their mobile phone. And so I think that there's a lot of really great use cases for having a mobile app. Like you were talking about your event manager app that allows people to check guests in while they're there by scanning a QR code or something like that. But I'm curious, Colin, maybe you could kick us off on this. Why is it so important and share some thoughts on why you think WordPress product
Mm.
owners might need to consider building an app as part of their product strategy or roadmap.
Yeah, I think that's the million-dollar question. And for us personally, I don't think we would have a business if we didn't do that. So I think one of the first reasons would be just to be able to extend WordPress. I think uh, WordPress is so powerful right behind the scenes, but there's so much more you can do with a native app. So in our case, we have the check-ins app for FooEvents, and we're able to connect with hardware. We're able to connect with Bluetooth barcode scanners and things like that. With FooSales, we're able to do card scanners, barcode scanners as well, and a whole bunch of extra functionality, things like offline mode, for example. It makes it a lot easier to do that, which are some of the features and functionality. Yes, it's getting a bit easier now with web, but there are still certain things that natively with apps you can do that you just can't do with web. So that's one of the biggest reasons, is just to be able to extend the power of WordPress. The other thing is to differentiate yourselves. I think, there's so many competitors. The barrier to entry is quite low with plugin development. As soon as you introduce an app, you're creating some natural barriers to entry, ways of differentiating yourself from your competitors. Also think it opens up your business to alternative pricing and business models. So, there's certain things you can do, like metered pricing and per platform pricing or per device pricing. So it really creates some interesting business models compared to just the normal annual, plugin license. So that's another really good reason for looking at it. I think the user experience, personally, once again, web is really slick, especially with React and the JavaScript libraries that exist. But I still think the user experience, a native app user experience, is better for many use cases. And you also get more in-depth. You can get more in-depth, metrics. User tracking, that kind of thing, which is just natively built into these into which you can natively build into the apps, and of course push notifications. That all ties into that user experience too. So obviously it depends very much about what your plugin or your product is, and just having an app for app's sake is also not advisable. But I really do firmly believe that for most plugin developers and builders, having a free companion app or extending your business through a pro version of something, will offer a lot of benefits.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of being able to allow people to interact with your product offline is
Yeah.
something I never even thought about until you said that just now. And and now I'm just thinking, wow, that really is actually really useful. So, what about you, Matt? Why
Yeah.
do you think this is an important topic?
Yeah, mostly because I do think WordPress product owners in general have to be thinking about all of the tools in the tool shed. And yeah, plugins and themes, they're kind of the standbys that have been there for forever and ever. And they are going to impact the website in one form or another. But the web is getting more complex, more robust, a lot larger than just simply a static-ish website. And so we always got to be thinking as much of how we could be useful to all of the business goals that our customers have in different ways. And web apps are a good one. I think the first time that I really got exposed to a really interesting application for web apps was through, I did a lot of websites in the past for churches. And churches always wanted to have their like calendar of events and things available in a really like a static HTML type format, because they often they complained that they had that their Wi-Fi got overrun when they were
Mm-hmm.
during church services and whatnot. They have too many people all trying to get on the Wi-Fi at the same time. And so having it there as an app available that would just load up, or it would get preloaded whenever the person was on the Wi-Fi. It would get preloaded with the events ahead of time. And then they come on to church, and then, oh, like the future events are actually there, even though I'm not on the Wi-Fi. That kind of thing, I was like, well, that's super practical. A really interesting application of something that I never would have thought of previously. So that's kind of how I think through the subject a little bit.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. Our check-ins app for FooEvents, when we initially built it, we actually saw it. It was a pro version, so we charged for it. We started charging for it on the app stores. We thought this would be a great additional revenue stream to the plugin. And it did okay, but we realized that by making it free, it was so integral to the offering and the user experience. And we actually saw our sales, skyrocket when we did that, because now we were making it accessible and available to more people, and it just extended the functionality of the plugin suite. And we're sitting at over I believe 10 million check-ins have been made through our app, and we're just seeing like it took a long time to get to that first million. And just like with most things in life, when you're successful, it's the time is getting shorter and shorter to the next million. So we're closing in already on 11 million, and back we thought a million was a lot. And that just shows, to your point, Matt, people use it a lot for checking in. And the beauty of the app-based model is that it can work offline and then sync once. If the Wi-Fi goes down or there's no Wi-Fi, it can resync all those check-ins afterwards with your WordPress database. And it also means that it's all cached and stuff like that, so it doesn't have a high demand on your server too. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits through that.
So we're talking about very B2C plugins, if you will, right? Like an events ticketing system. Or, we were chatting kind of pre-show about maybe Give could have an app where if a nonprofit is out at a fair or something, they could be taking donations via the app, right? Instead of sending people to their website. But is it as applicable for the back-end WordPress products? Like, because there are some really great WordPress products that don't really have this sort of front-end consumer-facing component. And I don't know, is that the marker where we say, okay, now you need an app because you need to make it easier for consumers to integrate with the product that's on the WordPress website, or as an alternative to using the product on the WordPress website? Or is there some way that we could have apps for these other tools as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and one that can only really be answered by the type of product and who the audience is. As I said earlier, I don't think just creating an app for app's sake is worth it. One of the kind of challenges, I suppose, with the app process is, firstly, it's a lot more expensive. The development, time-wise, you're looking at a higher-end developer. It's not as quick and easy. You also have to deal with the app stores. So, that there's lots of stories I can tell you about that, and how we've had many clashes with Apple over the years, particularly with our points of sales product. Many, having to write letters to them because they declined our updates or rejected the app initially because Apple won a piece of the pie, and they wanted the payments to all go through them, right? So we've had many challenges there, and things have gotten a lot easier and a lot better thanks to lawsuits and things like that. But it still can be tricky. It's not as easy as just updating a plugin, right? There's a process involved there, and there are reviewers and things like that. So you don't want to be going down that road unless it's really worth your while. And then just supporting multiple code bases potentially, and the problem with devices having to support hundreds of different Android devices, all around the world, that's also something that can be quite a challenge too. So one way of getting around that potentially is what we do with FooSales is we have a native web app, a native Android app, and a native iOS app. And we actually find that the use cases are a bit different for them. So, the native web app, you could argue, well, why don't you just use the WooCommerce interface instead? But we find that in our opinion, we make it a lot more, the user experience a lot better and easier for people to use it. One of the use
For the
cases is
shop
taking,
owners, you mean, rather
correct,
than the consumer?
correct. So one of
Hmm.
the examples would be for taking over the phone orders. A lot of companies still do that, right? They might not sell in person, but they do maybe take over the phone orders and sell on their website, but they appreciate a nice interface. So they use our kind of web version or web app to do that, take over the phone orders, and they find it's a lot easier to use than doing it in WooCommerce. And then, of course, there's the extra features. It connects to card readers and things like that. Works offline, has all of that built in. So there's a number of extra features that almost extend on the WooCommerce WordPress interface there. So yeah, I think it very much depends, but even just a nice front end web app could be applicable for many of these companies where they don't really see how a mobile app would benefit them, but certainly they could be thinking more, well, standalone web app.
Yeah, I think that was something I was sort of wondering is, how one would decide, do I build a web app or a mobile app, and do I start with iOS or Android, right?
Mm.
Obviously, there's a huge difference in code knowledge between all three of those things. So potentially that could be your deciding factor. Like, what skills do you have in-house, or who do you know that you could contract out to build the thing, but then how are you going to maintain it, right? But I'm wondering if there's other differences between going web or mobile or iOS or Android, in that deciding factor for a product owner of where you start when you're building an app.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And I mean, we see even between our companion app on the FooEvents side and FooSales, we see very different metrics in terms of Android, iOS. We seem to find that Android is very big in the handset market. So, if you're primarily building kind of a mobile handset app, you can't discount Android. However, on the FooSales side, where it's more tablet based, Android has a much smaller market share there. So we find like the iOS version of FooSales is way more popular than the Android version, whereas on the handset side, it's the other way around. So I think a lot of it has to just do with a general understanding of the market. But interestingly, what we in the process of doing now is we rebuilding our companion app on React Native. And that's very exciting because that essentially allows us to have a single code base and be able to natively push it to Android, iOS, and web. So that's the kind of route that we're going. And depending on how that goes, we're thinking about doing that for FooSales too. That will be a much bigger job because it is essentially rebuilding it. But once it's done and you've got a single code base to manage, the speed of development, then it becomes rapid development, and you don't have to think too much then about what the right platform is.
It's really fascinating. It is in many ways a ripe area for innovation and whatnot, for sure. Another interaction I've had often is I'll put this down here. Folks who actually have been doing this for a long time are AppPresser. AppPresser has been in that business of creating apps, either mobile apps or web apps, for their clients for a really long time. One of their co-founders, Brian, is someone who I every time I see him at a WordCamp, I ask him like, what crazy cool thing are you doing lately? Because and he always just whips out his phone and he's got something to show me of something amazing that he's been working on. It often has to do a lot with really large data sets, is what I noticed. That a client might have something that has a really large data set and they want to be able to see it on the go, more or less. And so they have the app that can sync up with data at a certain time, maybe once a day or once a week, and then it's available a lot more easily that they can navigate. Sometimes he has these ones that are huge, like product catalogs as well. But what I've always been interested in is how fast he can interact with all of this data, or um, all of this content, essentially, in these interfaces, regardless of the connection that's going on there.
Yeah.
I think thinking out of the box in those types of ways is really useful and helpful as well. Yeah. I don't know, but it's making me think. Like we did chat a little bit. Like, of course, I'm in the payment space, and honestly, like, I I don't know with certainty, but I actually believe that like if like we can't actually do like Stripe payments, we can't do that offline in any way. We really need to be able to interact with Stripe live, because they're doing some fraud checks, and we're not going to store anything sensitive on a device in that way at all. So we do have to have that live connection there. But I do know that that there are kind of like ways in which people do payments, but it's never live credit card payments. How are you tackling that? Like at live events and things like that, Colin? How do you go about doing those types of things?
Yeah, so I don't know the exact technical details of how we do that, but I do know that we're able to create the orders, and I think what happens is that as soon as there's an active connection, again, it syncs, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we the payments then get completed. So
So
Interesting.
it's like
yeah,
temporary storage on the
yes,
device of
yes,
the
I
credit
believe so.
card details or something that gets
Or a
deleted once
tokenized,
it syncs
probably a
over.
tokenized
Token,
version
yeah.
of
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, yeah. It would be nice if one of our devs who works on the payment side was here. But yeah,
Mm,
I understand. It is a fascinating aspect, because I've been at a lot of different nonprofit fundraising events, and they love to do these at people's homes that are up in the hills, um,
yeah.
and there's like just no good connections there. It's just not reliable. So and or people are always trying to make sure that there's some sort of like backup plan. Like if the internet is not good, what are we going to do instead? In those cases, they're like asking people for checks, which is terrible, or they're asking them for their email and phone number so we can follow
Mm,
up and ask you to give later, which is also terrible, because like only like 50% of those people are actually going to end up donating later. So that
Hmm.
becomes problematic. So I can see that as really useful for sure.
yeah, I mean that's a huge use case of FooSales actually is markets and things like that that often tend to be maybe in fields and these rural areas, and festivals. That's a big
Hmm.
one,
Hmm.
and then also just conferences. I mean, conference Wi-Fi is spotty at best, right?
Hmm.
And so for selling tickets, for example, and making the payments, like we find that that's a really big use case of it too. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I totally what you say is true.
So I think it would be kind of fun for a minute before we transition into story time to do a little bit of brainstorming for people who are watching and are thinking, okay, I might want to have an app, but how would this apply to me? Or what are some gaps maybe in the market where we're like, there really should be an app for this? And I thought about this a little bit before. And one of the things that came to mind is like if you had an LMS plugin, you could build some sort of app that makes the learning happen, like stores the data, maybe even gamifies it if you think about like Duolingo or something like that, right? To get people in there actually using the course a lot more. Um, I think I'll say it, the WordPress app sucks. So if somebody wants to build a better WordPress app, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would use that. uh, and then the other thing I thought was, if we're thinking like WordPress plugins, like there is definitely a hole here for creating a more social blogging experience, or something that would, like, we're talking about how do we get Gen Z and like young people into blogging instead of social media. So I feel like maybe there's an app opportunity there. But what do you guys think? Are there any holes in the market or any ideas you want to throw out there for a listener who needs a new product idea?
It's a good one. It's a really interesting one too. Like, in some way, it's, in my mind, it's kind of pairing with, this might sound left field, pairing a little bit with the Fediverse. We keep talking about how we want to help
Social blogging.
to help WordPress get in there and be able to be a lot more open, networking oriented, like almost like a social media platform that's distributed. And there might be some interesting play there in terms of like being or the idea of microblogging. A lot of folks have talked again about microblogging. If we could have some sort of app that enabled people to microblog to their website a lot more quickly, like they do on Twitter, instead of going to your Twitter app, your X app, or your Instagram or whatnot, you just open up your WordPress app, and it gets posted to your WordPress website where you own that content, and then it gets distributed to these other platforms in a more dynamic way. I know folks have talked about this a lot in a lot of different ways, but maybe the technology wasn't ever really fully there. But
We need
I don't know. That's where
somebody
my
to
brain goes.
revive Google Reader.
I
I
we
think
all
that's
wish.
the problem
We all
with all
wish.
the social blogging. There's not as many. There are some still, but there aren't as many good RSS apps anymore to curate RSS feeds and bring them to you, and then make it easy to comment on them and tag them and reshare them and that kind of thing, right? So
Yeah.
no.
I'm using Feedly for that now, and it seems to be like one of the only ones that really does it. And it is really good overall. But you're right. RSS is so important, especially for podcasts. Like, I can't distribute what we do without an RSS feed, and that's really important aspect for sure.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas, Colin, for apps that you feel like the WordPress market needs, or that a specific type of plugin is ripe for having an app?
Or apps
Well,
you're already
Beyond
planning to
events.
build. You're like, what's the next big release going to happen, Colin?
You're going to have a third app.
we've got such a long roadmap for both products that we like. Every time we get a new idea, we're like, no, just stay focused, because yeah, particularly on the FooSales side. I mean, points of sale system's a huge undertaking, and we didn't realize, we've obviously just evolved into this, but there are just so many features and things. Like, we hoping to do more integrations with other third-party plugins and stuff, popular ones in the future. That's where we really see, a lot of opportunity. I think, though, back to your question, Amber, like, just from a personal perspective, it would be great to just have a better metrics app for WooCommerce. Like, that's something we really struggle with. Is, obviously there's a lot of third-party services and stuff, but just to, good sales metrics, subscription metrics, all that type of stuff, like, that's more comparable to, say, Shopify. That would really also be very helpful, because it's not too good at the moment. So I think, just using APIs, there would be a really, a good developer out there, and a good front end guy could really do something quite amazing.
Yeah, really, I think any of those, like any plugin that has dashboards with reports, that is a prime thing. So WooCommerce, we talked about Give, EDD, affiliate WP, like anything like that, potentially having an app that extends the reports or makes them visible on the go, or without having to log into your website on mobile, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
That's such a
that's a
good
great
use
idea.
case. That's such a good use case of a good app, and whether you're a store owner or a developer or product owner, like just having that information on hand, but displayed in a really nice, accessible way, not just stats and things that you have to dig down deep into. Just having nice dashboards. It's such a great use case, I think. And depending on what it is, people would pay for it.
Oh, you know who I just realized really needs one? WP Fusion. Think of
Yes.
what they could build with all of the things that they connect to. They could build the new like Looker Studio or Tableau or whatever that collates all of the data from all the different things, but for WordPress people. So I think that's my new
Nice.
request to the internet.
Free advice, Jack. I hope you're listening.
Yep, I hope so. Well, okay, so let's do a little story time. And I know you've told us a ton about, the background of your products and those sorts of things, but I'm curious if you could walk us through how you built your Android iOS apps. Like, did you do them in-house? Did you contract it out? Is there any lessons from that process? Any experience you have. And then of course, Matt and I can share some experiences we've had with thinking about apps.
Sure.
And that kind of stuff.
So we were really lucky in the sense that we already had experience building apps quite early on through our agency. We had a lot of requests, so we had the in-house skills, some brilliant people in-house, and that had given us quite a kickstart, and was one of the reasons why when we were looking at productizing our business, we knew that apps would be a crucial would play a crucial role in that, because of our skills and experience, and just because of the advantages that I mentioned earlier, where we could see, it would be a great way to extend and differentiate WordPress. So we started off with the FooEvents check-ins app, and I believe that was around 2015, 2016, and it was very basic, but it served its purpose, which was being able to list tickets and check people in. And as I mentioned, the idea was to have like a pro version that people would pay for, and where they could white label it and do all of that. But within a few months, we decided to just make it all free, because we realized actually we would get more sales, plugin sales, by doing that. So so that it kind of evolved, and then we did also the iOS version, and saw a lot of demand for it. One of the I suppose I've mentioned it before, but the big challenge there is just that it is more expensive and time consuming initially, because obviously the development skills are very different, and there's different challenges that they might run into. So just making yourself aware of that. If you don't have the in-house skills for it, you're probably going to need to hire a freelancer, or an agency for that matter. But they're going to charge you a lot more than they probably would if they were doing, a website or a plugin, a custom plugin or something for you. So it's very important that you identify the features and the specs, and do as much work up front as possible before actually engaging with a developer, or an agency. So that's one bit of advice I would give. With us, it was a bit easier because it's in-house, and we can make mistakes, expensive mistakes, and fix them. But if you don't have access, that would be one bit of advice I would give. Also, not to bloat the app, and add too many unnecessary features. There's also a tendency to want to do that, but once again, if you think about the reasons you're doing it is for user experience, one of the reasons is to offer a better user experience, and also because, as I mentioned, it's expensive development wise. You really want to make sure that you keep the features as targeted as possible, and keep your app as lean and mean as possible. And that ties into kind of the third bit of advice, which is to really understand your target audience and what your strategy is for doing the app. And without that, everything kind of falls apart because you don't really know who your user is going to be. You don't really know what kind of user experience they want, and you don't kind of know what features they're expecting. So we listen to our customers a lot. I think most builders do. We also bootstrapped. I don't think I mentioned that. So we haven't had the luxury of just being able to hire lots of developers and just take a spray and pray approach. It's been very strategic, and we rely a lot on our customers. To kind of give us feedback about how the products work and what they would like to see, and iterate from there. And of course, yeah, so if you're keeping it lean and mean, you're getting good customer feedback, you've got a good relationship with either an in-house developer, a freelancer, or an agency, and you're able to iterate, very quickly. And that's what we did, especially in the early days. We released versions very, very regularly. To fix bugs, obviously, but also with new features and functionality. And that's one of the beauties with app development, is that you can do that and people get the push notification, or they can just have auto app updates and they've already got the latest feature. So yeah, and then just as I mentioned a bit earlier about the app stores, you might run into challenges with them, but it's also very important then to be very clear about what the app is offering and how it differs from, say, your website or your plugin, and how it extends on that. Because sometimes the reviewers, in the early days, they rejected our apps because they said, well, no one's going to use this. They had that power back in the day. Apple were like God on in the App Store, and they still have a bit of that syndrome going on, but it helps when you've got a few apps in the store. They go a little bit easier on you, it seems. And we
I didn't
used to have
realize
to,
it's not
yeah,
as easy as the
no,
the plugin repo. You could just submit
no,
and pass some basic security checks. You're in. They actually want to think people are going to use it. I
yeah,
guess they
it
don't want to
was.
store all the code for all the millions of ideas people submit.
Especially Apple, it's changed. They have definitely changed a bit, but in the early days, and I'm still talking like in the late 2000s, 2000 and 2015 upwards, they would still ask you to justify what the purpose of the app is, who your user is going to be, and kind of why they should accept you. And we had a lot of back and forth. So I remember even being on a phone call with one of their reviewers, like at one point, like I had to actually have a phone call with them, because they just didn't see the value. And it's quite amazing, especially coming from a web background, where you just get your hosting and you get your WordPress installation and you're good. It's a very different environment. And they do still, that is one of the risks. You still are on these app stores, and it's never certain, even when you do an update, that they're going to accept it. And sometimes you got to do more work. Sometimes they have a problem with it. So it is very much, it's a gate kept environment. So I would say, that's just something that you need to keep in mind. And often first time app developers or first time apps, it can take up to like a week for them to review your app as well. So, which can be a little bit anxiety inducing, or if you've got a new release to fix a bug, it can, sometimes take a little while. Like we quite fortunate now where it's usually within 24 hours they've approved it and it's ready to go. But it's definitely having an appreciation for different workflows, and the fact that you have this whole approval process. And Google, ironically, were very, very laissez-faire in the beginning, whereas Apple weren't. But Google now starting to also clamp down a bit, and I think it's just because there have been some instances of dodgy apps, just making their way onto the Play stores and stuff like that. So they both do review the apps, and they can reject them. Even updates, once you're on there, you're not guaranteed that your updates are going to be approved. So something else to keep in mind.
Really interesting. On this show, we often talk about the value of WordPress.org as a lead funnel for any freemium plugins, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, no matter what anybody ideologically wants it to be or whatever, it is a lead funnel for freemium products. It is a marketplace of a type of a form, just like the Play Store is for Google and the Apple one as well. And I'm curious if you have experienced the app stores as a lead funnel, or if you have data about that, because that's a really important aspect that product owners should think about. Is that if you see value in being on .org, like what kind of value do you get from being on the App Store or on the Play Store? So can you talk to that just a
Yeah.
little bit?
Absolutely. I think that's a very crucial point that you're making, is you've got another sales channel that you can tap into. That's another big
Yeah.
advantage. And obviously the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store feature very prominently in search listings. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you've got an established app there with good ratings, particularly, or just really good keywords in there, you're also now going to have a whole nother sales channel. So, particularly, we still do get a lot of referrals, traffic that comes from the stores. The both the installations on both Apple and Google we've got over 10,000 active installations on there on each of them. And the data that we get from there is also, you're getting different data than what you would be getting from like your plugin usage and that type of thing, like very, very granular stuff, because all the events are tracked, how people interact with your app. So we've taken away a lot from that. And then the reviews, people are also, obviously, they're researching your product, and reviews, as we know, are incredibly important, and people take app reviews quite seriously. So
Yeah.
we've done like a big push on getting people to review our apps, just kind of calls to action within the app, not fake reviews or anything like that, but just really encouraging our users to submit app reviews, not just plugin reviews, because we
Yeah.
know how important they are and how prominently they feature in the search results.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally. We get a lot of free trial signups. So like FooSales has a free trial. We get a lot of free trial signups from people searching in the App Store for points of sale system, or WooCommerce, or whatever the case may be. So there's a whole another ecosystem there that I think WordPress product developers can tap into, and not just focus on the .org, which everyone's trying to gamify. So
Yeah. Interesting. Do you also like the the customer experience part is always really important to me. Anecdotally, I've always noticed that reviewers on the Play Store, App Store are a lot more thin-skinned than WordPress folks. I mean, WordPress product owners, we complain all the time about reviews, one-star reviews that seem so unfair, but it feels like with apps, they're like a dime a dozen.
yeah,
They feel they have a lot bigger sense of entitlement. Like if your app doesn't do exactly what they want immediately, they just uninstall, give you the middle finger and a 1-star review, and move on without a second thought. Have you
yeah.
experienced that as well? That the app users are a lot harder to please?
It's funny you should mention this. We just had our all hands meeting before this, and we were talking about that. Something we track over time, and it's a bit frustrating because a lot of those reviews are old as well. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the app might have crashed because there was some bug, and immediately they leave their 1-star review and let the internet know, and they never try the update. So yeah, I totally agree with you. But what is also very motivating is to see the trends for both our products heading upwards. So we know that, like in the early days, you expect there to be angry people because of a bug or because of a feature that's not there. One of the things, though, which we like about the App Store review process, is that you can comment. You can actually respond to them, and the users can change their review. So we have quite a process around that. Like, we monitor every single review, that is ever made on either of the apps, and we respond as quickly as we can and try and, if it is a technical problem, that's a frustrating thing. It might be a technical problem, but they're leaving an app review, right? We try and encourage them to rather get hold of our support so we can deal with that offline. It's not really a problem with the app itself necessarily. Could even be their hosting or something silly. But we always try and encourage those people when we do sort out their problem to go and like update their review, and we've had that quite a lot. So I kind of like that mechanism, the fact that you, as the app developer, you can respond, and the reviewer can actually go and change their review. So that's what we try and do. It doesn't always work, of course, and in general, reviewers are a lot more harsh on the app stores, like you said, but that's like just something that you have to deal with. And fortunately, as I said, we're starting to see all our reviews and our star ratings trending upwards, and that's what we like to see.
For sure. Another big one that, before the show, I was like, hey, we'd like to do this as a discussion, not so much an interview, but like, it feels like we're going interview style a little bit more. But another big difference for product owners between .org and a place like the Play Store or the App Store is data. Don't you have a lot more usage data and a lot closer connection to your actual users than with the WordPress freemium plugins?
Yeah, totally. In fact, too much data. Like we were also talking about that today. Like you are just overloaded with data. So I think that's another, going back to the earlier question, I think
I would love to have that problem with my plugins.
Yeah, well, going back to like Amber's question earlier, that's, I think, one of the huge benefits, and depending on what your use case is, why, if you're more of a back end kind of operation, like that could be another reason why you would want to have some kind of mobile app, would be to acquire better data than you're currently getting through the .org repository, or even through Google Analytics. They're just things there that you get because there is such a close collaboration between the operating system and the app itself. There's just so many more things that can be tracked. Totally. Like that's definitely one of our the things we use. But to be fair, we don't use enough of it. Like that's probably where we should use more of the data.
Yeah, I think too, some of this goes a little bit to, as a product owner, thinking about what your end game is. Are you planning to sell or hoping to sell at some point in time? Because having, like it or not, having more data increases the value of your company. If hey, I can send an email out to my email list about a sale and some percentage will buy, well, the bigger that email list is, the more people will buy, right? And if you can hit that trigger every so often, and that will just guarantee money, right? The other thing that is sort of interesting here, I know we're all about open source and GPL and WordPress land, but apps don't have to be GPL, right? Which means you could also potentially patent them. And that, I think, goes with huge valuation increases. If you have an idea that no one else is doing and you can patent it, or patent some specific part of the code or algorithm or whatever that might be. So I think, like, as a business owner, these are some of the things that in the moment we might just be like, oh, it'd be kind of neat to have an app or whatever. But there are some very strategic reasons to potentially want to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that is so true, Amber. And like obviously with the mobile apps, they're all built and compiled, and there's a lot of like proprietary code in there. The plugins, we've got helper plugins for like FooSales, those are all GPL, but obviously the nuts and bolts is in the actual app, and that's a compiled file. So that does give us some power in a sense, and also you're creating that intellectual property that can be valuable if you are wanting to exit down the line.
So we're about at time. I know we didn't do a ton of story time for you and me, Matt. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, or do you want to transition us over to best advice? What are you
Yeah,
thinking?
I think now is a great time to talk about best advice for this subject for sure. So, Colin, the way we love to do this is imagine you're at a WordCamp and you run into somebody you always want to talk to, but you're both going to opposite directions. You got like 3 sentences to give them. They're like, Colin, I want to get into app development. What's your best advice? How do you pass that nugget on to them at your WordCamp really quickly? What's your best advice there?
Learn React Native or hire someone that knows React Native. Start with a minimum viable product. Iterate.
Love it. That's interesting,
That
starting
sounds
with
great.
the React Native part. Of course, that makes a tons of sense. You kind of like need that as core in order to build anything whatsoever. And it's not a given in the WordPress development environment. Unfortunately, it's getting more and more so with Gutenberg and everything. But still, it continues to be a little bit of a struggle to find folks who really know how to write React as well as any of the common WordPress folks can write PHP. So that's a good one.
So I'll say my best advice kind of maybe tails off of that, which is if you don't know where to start, I would suggest starting with doing a web app before a mobile app, because we have done several of these. We don't have a mobile app. They're not related to our product, but for clients, we've done this. And there are a lot of great things about building a JavaScript based app that pulls off of WordPress that can speed up your development process. Like, hey, now you don't have to write rules about how to register users because that already exists, right? Or how to store certain data in the database that already exists. And so I feel like if you're trying to figure out how to do this, maybe starting with the web app is a good first step that will get you there faster. And then you could then go into one of the mobile platforms. That's my advice.
Good point.
What about you, Matt?
I like it.
Best advice.
As much as I love the subject and it's been a great conversation, I might be just a little bit contrarian. If I have like 3 sentences with somebody in between WordCamp, they're like, I want to go into web app business. My question would really be, do you really? Do you actually want to? Just because very often they don't have the experience and they don't actually, they'll be spending a ton of time and effort into something that maybe they aren't really equipped to do. So instead, I would say you absolutely should do that if your customers are knocking down your door for it. Like, maybe start with a whole bunch of customer research where they're like, we love what we're doing with your plugin, but we really got to be able to use it out in the field in different ways. If they're really knocking down the door, then I would say absolutely jump. But so before doing anything, start with listening really carefully to you. I mean, I'm sorry, that tends to be my best advice almost every episode. But that's
Listen to
my
your
shtick.
customers
But
first.
Good advice, though.
Especially if you're building an app that you have a great plugin for a long time, you're going to build an app. You don't want it to just go out there and like have like 0 installs. If you have this built-in base of people who already want it and need it, you're going to get adoption a lot more quickly. But if even your own customers don't want it or need it, why are you doing it in the first place? So,
Yeah. Well, that is a wrap. I think this has been a really fun show and conversation. Colin, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you online?
Can find me on Twitter at Youngblood, on LinkedIn, of course. And then, yeah, our sites are FooSales.com and FooEvents.com.
That's awesome. Well, for everyone watching, thank you. Please tune in next week. Matt and I will be back again with guest Mike McAllister to discuss creating amazing experiences when onboarding new users to WordPress.
and like every week, special thanks to Post Status for being our green room. If you are enjoying these episodes, then do us a favor and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends, reference the show in your newsletters. Most of all, we hope to see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.